Hey, Jade here. Today we'll be looking at the beast of pure fiction, Jade. She brings an amazing sub-DPS kit with gigantic self-buffs. Today I'll go through how her kit works, it's pretty simple, and then her best build with light cones and relics all calculated. I'll be reviewing her Eidolons as well, especially her E1 which changes her a lot, and I'll also be going through some teams. If you like this guide, maybe like and subscribe, but now, let's begin. Jade is our second Quantum Erudition unit. They're either gamblers or friends with gamblers, it seems. Her base stats aren't too special, but her attack is decent. For trace priority, I recommend investing into her talent and then ultimate, with skill and basic being possible afterwards, but not high priority. Her basic attack is actually quite unique. It's not enhanced, yet it is a blast type basic, meaning you can hit one target and any adjacent enemies. You'll actually be using this a lot too due to how her skill functions. Acquisition Surety will designate an ally as the debt collector for 3 turns, and this turn duration will decrease at the start of Jade's turns, so all buffs are based on her own turns and won't be ruined if you have a super fast ally. So it will first increase the target speed by 30. Secondly, when they attack, every enemy hit gets additional damage dealt by Jade, scaling on her stats. Third, when they attack, 2% of their max HP will be consumed. This HP consumption is pretty insignificant in reality over the course of a fight. It makes Sustainers compositions a little harder, but I never seem to die when doing so. And yes, this works as Blade losing HP, allowing for 2 talent stacks per attack now, which is awesome. Jade can select herself as a debt collector, but it will not give her the speed buff, nor will it consume her HP. And when she has a unit designated as a debt collector, she cannot reuse this skill, hence why she will spam basic attacks. Now this ties into her talent, Fang of Flare Flaying. When Jade or the debt collector attacks, you gain 1 charge for every enemy hit. So AoE attacks can bring a total of 5, balanced attacks can too if they hit enough units. Jade's blast basic attacks can in fact give 3 a turn, but this is why giving an ally the debt collector buff is important, as they can enable way more charges than if she had it herself, especially with that extra speed she won't be getting. Now when reaching 8 stacks of charge, Jade unleashes her massive follow-up attack with a very high AoE multiplier. It won't generate stacks of charge though, that would be a bit too OP. These charge stacks can keep on stacking and haven't got a cap as far as I'm aware. This talent introduces Pawned Asset 2, a self buff for Jade that increases her crit damage by 2.4% every stack up to 50, or 120% free crit damage, which is pretty massive. Every follow-up she does, she gains 5 stacks. Jade's ultimate is a nuke, dealing double her talent's damage to all enemies. It will of course also count for giving charges, so 5 free charges maximum, and it will also increase her talent's multiplier by 80%, meaning versus 5 enemies, her follow-up goes from 600% of her attack to 1000%. In total, this ultimate thus gives us 2000 multiply value when combining her ultimate and the 2 follow-up attack multiply increases. Finally, her technique is very cool and useful, and you'll definitely want to use this, and you can do so without any hassle. With Blind Fealty, you'll stop enemies attacking in the overworld, and you'll also link all enemies to one combat, meaning you'll enter combat with all of them together in waves. The real winner part though is the 15 pawned asset stacks, instrumental for alleviating her ramp-up issue and letting her start with an extra 36% crit damage. To further improve her ramp-up, her A2 trace will give her 1 stack when an enemy enters, meaning she now starts combat with a possible 16 to 20 stacks. Also, when the debt collector's turn starts, an additional 3. Since they are supercharged with speed, they will be able to contribute plenty of stacks, and she can get to 50 stacks quite quickly. Her A4 gives her a 50% advance forward upon entering combat. It's like a stronger Vonwacq without any speed requirement. This can be used to easily take the first turn over any DPS and thus give them the speed boost ASAP. This also means with Vonwacq you can nearly act at 0 AV, which could be needed if you have very specific speed tuning needs. Finally, her A6 makes her pawned asset even stronger, now giving her a 25% attack buff at max stacks. Quantum damage, attack percent, and effect res are her 3 trace stat bonuses. Now onto that E1. This E1 in my opinion is game changing for Jade. In pure fiction you do not need this, but if you want her to do anything crazy in Memory of Chaos, this is quite necessary. It also drastically increases her debt collector character pool, and let's see why. First, you'll get a damage percent boost for your follow-ups, which is nice, but now if the debt collector hits 1 enemy, you get 2 charges extra, and if they hit 2 enemies, you get 1 charge extra. What this does is it means you will always get at least 3 charges per attack now from your Debt Collector ally. 1 enemy hit is 3, 2 enemies hit is 3, 3 enemies hit is 3, and anything extra is extra, but you could get that at E0 anyway. What this means is Memory of Chaos and Apocalyptic Shadow, when the adds are all dead, are much easier to deal with for Jade. It also means single target allies can now be used with her. For example, Topaz, Pella, Yanqing even. And since you don't naturally bring those 5 enemy target erudition units into MOC, it means Jade is much more viable with these lower target attackers. And since attack frequency is the most important, you can even do stupidly fun things like Multiplication Gallagher for an insane amount of charges. I enjoyed Winset 2-turn Ultimate Pella as well. So if you want her for just pure fiction, you can stick to E0, but E1 is needed to be competitive in the other modes in my opinion. Also, as a further note, she didn't do crazy well in Apocalyptic Shadow even with E1, but I would wait for showcases or other TC opinions on this. As for the rest of her Eidolons, her E2 is a simple 18% crit rate boost. Her E4 is a simple Death Ignore buff that is up pretty much permanently. Her E6 gives her more damage in the form of 20% res pen, but it also drastically increases her charge generation, as she will now always be a Debt Collector, meaning her attacks will contribute double the normal charges. Onto builds. First off, she's a Quantum and follow-up unit, so Quantum and Duke are by far her best Relic sets. Since she is traditionally a sub-DPS, Duke can end up being better, considering you won't always be versus your main carry's element weakness and quantum weakness at the same time. So for best consistent results, I say Duke. Valorous is okay on her considering her ult is a nuke, but this set is definitely built for a future unit, not Jade. For plain ornaments, she has tons of sets. They keep giving similarly strong sets in pretty close niches, so it will all be dependent on subsets. Either way, in strength for my calculations, it's Duran over Izumo or Sigonia over Sal Soto. Duran is considered best due to how much she's lacking in damage percent, and she also lacks in attack percent somewhat, which is why Izumo comes out second best. Sigonia is equal to Izumo despite the large crit value difference, since she already gives herself 120% crit damage, so more on top isn't as substantial. Either way, all of these are within substat difference and can depend a bit on support. There is also the possibility of going Vonwacq to hit basically 0 AV, and means your Debt Collector will get the speed buff as early as possible, which might be needed for rotations. But it won't be the end of the day if you don't get that first turn setup right, for example in a Bronya team, as the first action will be unbuffed by the Harmony either way. Focusing on her DPS with a DPS planar set is more important from what I can tell. I can see some team setups possibly needing Vonwacq though. As for main stats, you'll want to get a crit rate chest due to her talent. In some niche cases, of course, crit damage chest is an option if you're balling in substats and have her signature. For boots, you can go attack percent or speed. I prefer attack percent since she is enabled by a unit and the damage increase is worth more than slightly extra actions. And in my simulations, attack percent boots were a 16% DPS increase over speed. Next, you want a quantum damage or attack percent orb. Attack percent orb is better with speed boots, damage percent orb with attack percent boots, but they're not too far away in performance. For rope, always attack percent. I didn't see an instance where energy was desired or better in damage. For stat goal, I would aim for 2.5k to 3k attack depending on boot choice. For speed, you can just stick with base, and if going for any speed, you can aim for 120 for Vonwacq or 134. For a crit ratio, she gives herself so much crit damage, so the goal is to stack as much crit rate as possible. You can aim for at least 70% crit rate, ideally hitting 100% if you are a baller with her signature. Crit damage can be around 100% or a bit higher. This would give you an in-combat ratio of 100 to at least 220. Now let's check out those Lycones. Yet Hope His Priceless gives us a nice 16% crit rate boost to get to that desired high crit rate value. Then up to a 48% damage buff to follow-ups for every 20% crit damage above 120%. Then if you use a basic 20% def ignore on ultimate or follow-up attacks. Anyway, this signature, as my friend would say, is out of control on Jade. The only cone that comes close is Milky Way at max uptime in pure fiction. The rest are all decent and around the same power, but I'd recommend Peaceful Day if you have it. And because of her high crit damage steroid, Genius's Repose and Cosmos both lost some value unfortunately. But she's still very good with a weak cone, her kit is just that good for pure fiction. Energy rotations don't really matter because she is fixed into a skill basic rotation and the energy is very varying in pure fiction. You'll get your ult up in about 3 to 4 turns considering kills and follow-up attacks. This rotation will generate 0.33 SP a turn, which is fantastic for SP economy in the dual DPS teams she will be playing with. It means with an SP positive sustain and harmony unit, you can easily spam skill on the DPS and also look to use more SP than normal on the harmony or abundance. For example, Ho with a faster rotation. This can also work for sustainless teams to allow 2 harmony to go ham. And in the case of a Blade Jade team, you can in fact have too much SP. So let's check out those teams. In Pure Fiction, you'll be running a main carry with Jade as sub-DPS. Among Erudition, you can run everyone except Qingcui. She puts her deck collector on the ally and they go ham on AoE attacks, enabling some massive and frequent follow-ups from Jade. I think the weakest of the Erudition combos though is Jing Yuan. In the case of running 3 Erudition together, I think it was overkill and would often waste follow-ups from one of the units. Hypercarry Jade though did work fine without too much waste, and it's a whole load of fun just watching them keep spinning and spamming follow-ups. If I were you though, I'd run one of them on the second side to ensure an easy 3-star clear. And in the Create Experience server, we only had the follow-up Pure Fiction to test in, but I'm sure it won't matter as the Blessing didn't carry the performance Jade did. One really nice synergy is Blade Jade, or Blade Jade, and this works in Pure Fiction fantastically. With the double talent charges every attack now, Blade's follow-up frequency significantly increases. This means even more AoE damage and healing. Combined with his ult's HP setting mechanic, you can run sustainless Blade Jade comps. In MSC, this comp does pretty well when you hit E1 Jade as well. Both units aren't too strong into lower target scenarios, but with 2 Harmony and E1 Jade, which is expensive, you'll be getting so many attacks it won't matter as much. Despite the break-centered MOC, I one-cycled MOC 11 with this composition. And yes, you can zero-cycle with other units and 2 Harmonies, but I thought I'd mention it as Blade is seen as a weak unit, and Jade is designed for Pure Fiction. Although Awaits is a Harmony designed for Blade specifically, and we might be balling. Jade Clara also works in a similar fashion, as Jade will get a lot from Clara's AoE skill and frequent follow-ups. At E1 Jade notably, the single target Clara follow-ups will always give 3 charges, which makes this a great duo. For Harmonies to pair with Jade, my recommendation is Robin or Rong-Mei, since you will fit her into dual DPS compositions. If running Jade with a unit that can use Bronya, then she is also highly recommended since she can double the amount of turns the main DPS gets, which in turn doubles the charge generation for Jade. The best example is Bronya Jade Blade. And whilst I do recommend her as a sub-DPS, you can run her as a hypercarry just like dedicated Topaz fans do, it just won't be as strong as a dual DPS composition. And if you do run hypercarry, in my opinion, you'll want a unit like Pella, and you'll put Deck Collector on her rather than Jade herself. This is because you don't gain the speed buff on Jade, meaning you'd have to sacrifice attack full speed, which is some damage loss already. Next, a Pella is normally built for like 160 speed, and with Jade's speed buff, that's 190. So good luck outspeeding that kind of charge generation. Next, since Jade is forced into a skill basic rotation and has a high ult cost, she isn't going to be getting as many ultimates. Tied with the fact that she generates SP, Pella can in fact run a full skill spam or skill basic rotation, allowing for 2-turn Pella ultimates, or double the speed Jade would get. Add that with the win set, and Pella goes zoom. Other options can be a sustain that attacks a lot, like Lawatcher or Gallagher with multiplication, or a Venturine. This is all because the deck collector buff is just there to be used as an enabling tool for Jade. And when considering E1 Jade especially, these single target basic attack high speed units like Pella, Lawatcher, Gallagher generate so many charges. If you want to put deck collector on herself, I'd run an action advanced composition with Sparkle. So for E1 comps, you can start running combos like Topaz Jade, Blade Jade but stronger and in MOC, and even Yanqing Jade did 3 cycles into Argenti in MOC 12, which I think is good, right? You can even run Zila Jade, Gallagher Jade, Lawatcher Jade. I mean, someone will probably even do Jade with a Bronya basic spam with her advanced talent and Dance Dance Dance. And if you combine one of these high speed units with a Robin, you get a super fast DPS that enables both Robin and Jade's damage output. I think E1 really opens up both viable new compositions as well as a lot of meme composition potential. So let me know what you think of Jade, and if you're pulling for her. Thanks to my amazing YouTube members, thanks for watching, and have a Guoba day.